back, and I'm really happy that you are back because it seems like the Q movement is moving forward with great speed, and the phenomenon is spreading. And even Q is saying that it's spreading and more people will be coming to the boards. And I wanted to start off with the Q phenomenon. Why do you think this is spreading? Why do you think the mainstream media is now putting out articles talking about conspiracies? Why do you think they're reporting on it? Why do you think they're giving it, the attention that they're giving it, even though they're trying to, spin the agenda and spin the story? Why do you think this is all happening right now?
So the reason the mainstream media is doing this whole coordinated effort, it's truly amazing that we woke up literally one day and you saw 40, 50, 60 articles on QAnon from every single outlet you could think of, right? So it was obviously coordinated. And the reason being is because so many people are becoming aware of this issue. It was seen at Trump's rally. Many Trump rallies over the last few weeks, we're seeing more and more of these signs and shirts and Q paraphernalia. But at this specific rally was at Tampa. There was some held up in the crowd. Even Fox News was live streaming it. And you could see the Q cutouts and signs. So the mainstream media had to go into discredit mode, if you will. Not just the mainstream media, but even a lot of people in the alternative and independent media, which is very, very peculiar. But there was a coordinated attack that was carried out to discredit and ridicule this subject to try to keep it from spreading. Because so many people are asking questions about it, so many people are beginning to do their own research and delving into it, and the control structures, the powers that be, do not want that. They do not want an informed, empowered public.
So you mentioned alternative media channels also reporting against Q and saying that it's completely fake. There was one video that was put out, and a lot of people have been sending it to me, where they're saying that certain individuals like Pamphlet and many others, they're involved in this whole Q conspiracy. They're the ones behind it. They are Q. And, they gave us like examples like Trump, TwitterArchive.com. That's where they got the tweets ahead of time because they use the API codes. I mean, why do you think they're pushing this agenda? I mean, do you believe it or don't you believe it? What's your take on that?
No, I don't believe it. It doesn't resonate, doesn't make sense to me. I believe a lot of the anti-Q information, their quote, evidence that it's fake is fabricated. And we've been hearing these things for months now. These claims of evidence to debunk it have been out there for 4 or 5 months. This is the exact same thing we heard back in May when the first round of kind of anti-Q debunkers jumped onto the scene. Many of them were pro-Q before they just did an about face, did a 180. They became anti-Q all of a sudden. And then these same talking points began to be iterated and reiterated. So no, I don't believe that this is evidence that somebody was just sitting on the boards or we can prove who Q is by any means. And what's also interesting is that even in the independent and alternative media, they're parroting the same talking points that the mainstream media is. And it's all baseless claims. They claim that, Q is thinking that the Q movement thinks that JFK Jr. is Q, so that obviously debunks it. It's like, nobody said that. It's all these people who are claiming that Q is fake, they just literally haven't read the post themselves. Or have probably spent any time on 8chan or really understand how the process works.
Well, I mean, is this why Q continually gives confirmation showing like certain pictures or the pen of the president or pictures within the president's office in those areas? Is this why Q continually does this to show everyone that, yeah, this is real?
That's why, since from the beginning, the core group that initiated this Q program, they've had to bring legitimacy to it. Now, they, of course, can't do that overtly. In the beginning, Trump can't just go on a stage and say, hey, Q's legit. So they have to do that very subtly and covertly. They bring legitimacy to the Q program through two means. One is through confirmations that you're describing. So say Q will post something, we'll see that exact same line show up in the president's tweet later, or maybe the president does his very subtle cue hand motion on stage during a speech. He's done that multiple times. It's subtle if you don't know what you're looking for, but if you are familiar with Q, it's not subtle at all. And there's been many. I mean, I could reference tens, if not hundreds, of different confirmations we've seen over the last 9 months. Recently, they're getting much more obvious, whether it's somebody in a Q shirt at a Trump rally. Trump points right at that individual. We've had the presidential motorcade honk for a sign. The sign said honk for Q, and there's a video on YouTube of the presidential motorcade honking as they drive by this sign. Just happened a couple weeks ago. So in the beginning, the confirmations in this style were much more subtle, but now they're much more obvious because of how many people are looking into this issue. A lot of people are very skeptical. I understand skepticism, trust me, but there's a difference between healthy skepticism and rigid skepticism. We see a lot of people's belief systems being challenged by this operation, and they're clinging to illogical ways of thinking. So that's one way that Q has brought legitimacy to themselves or to this operation, is through those kinds of confirmations. And another way is through foreshadowing. The foreshadowing involves Q, for instance, mentioning Saudi Arabia, connections between Saudi Arabia and different bad actors and political puppets back in November. And Q mentioned Saudi Arabia only a couple days before the Saudi Arabian purge of corrupt princes began over there in that country, which is probably November 4th or 5th, I believe. So that was one foreshadowed event. Q has mentioned North Korea many times over the months, and we see what's happening with North Korea. Everybody thought they were going to nuke the world. Then they turned around and wanted peace with Trump and was more than happy to open their doors. People were like, why? What the heck? Well, if you've been following the Q posts, you understand why what happened. North Korea got their chains cut, their strings cut. They were no longer being blackmailed by the CIA, essentially. And they were able to make deals, make pacts. If you've been following Q, you knew about this back in January, February, but the world finally knew about North Korea wanting to make peace in, what was that, May or June, or something like that. So, yeah, two ways Q brings themselves legitimacy, lets us know that this is, in fact, a high-level, official information dissemination program, is through connecting us to Trump and the administration.
Now, you mentioned North Korea and the intelligence agencies, and I mean, the corporate media, they still report on North Korea that they're still creating, ICBMs. They're still not denuclearizing. I mean, are these true stories?
I would say fake news. They're always trying to create some kind of boogeyman, some kind of proxy to scare the public with. And all of their proxies, the deep state is totally losing. They don't have ISIS anymore. So now that Trump is in office, we don't have somebody in office that has strings attached to them, so we can actually begin fighting the war on ISIS instead of creating some smokescreen like we have for decades past. So ISIS is getting obliterated. They have been over the last couple of years. The deep state can no longer use ISIS. The deep state is having a very difficult time with all of their other proxies as well, and even committing many of their false flag operations as such as well. So they're really on the ropes. A lot of this in regarding North Korea is fake news, I would say. They're just still trying to scare people, make people think that Trump is weak and Trump is not succeeding against or with North Korea, but definitely is. So yeah, I would say fake news is the answer to that. Real fake news.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of misinformation or fake news, like you've been saying. It's called coming out of the corporate media. Is this driven by the intelligence agencies, do you think?
Absolutely. Where shall we begin the answer to this? I'm going to begin it during World War II. Of course, many believe that the Americans won World War II, and then, that was that. That's what they tell us in the history books. But when you look a little deeper as to what they don't tell us, you'll find that after World War II, the same controlling banking interests funded both sides of the war. the secret society industrialists. So with the Allies winning the ground war, the deep state still wanted to find a way to control and subvert the population. So what they did is they immigrated many of those Nazi scientists and researchers over into America and fed them right into the military-industrial complex. That was called Operation Paperclip. So thousands of Nazi scientists came over and were installed into places of power within the medical, aerospace, media, and intelligence agencies. So the Nazis never really went away. They just kind of immigrated over here and started doing their thing. Now, from Operation Paperclip then stemmed many other operations that the CIA was involved with. The CIA was installed with many of these bad actors. And one of those operations was called Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird was whereby the intelligence agencies, CIA, had cutouts, had agents placed within media corporations to feed them narratives. And this was done decades ago, and it's been the exact same way ever since. We have agents embedded within the media corporations that are there lying to us on purpose, that are being fed these narratives. And when you look at the CEOs and the board of directors of these media corporations, it's just a revolving door. It's a revolving door between these CEOs and board of directors of media corporations and politics and intelligence agencies as well. So absolutely, we're being fed narratives that the CIA wants us to believe. And you look at the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, well, they want to centralize all the intelligence for themselves and feed us, what they want us to believe, the sanitized versions of it.
Now, I want to just change topics a little bit, still on Q, but I wanted to talk about the IG report, FISA, and people are, it feels like many people are to the point where they want to see arrests. They want to see something happen. And many people are saying, okay, Q continually tells us, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Do you think this is going to happen very soon, or are we going to still have to wait for maybe the declassification of the IG report or the FISA memo? Do you think something is going to happen soon?
I want to split this answer into two parts. The first part is just addressing the idea of mass arrests. Of course, it's something we're all waiting for. We want to happen as soon as possible. But the biggest drawback in preventing that from happening right now is the awakening of the public, which is why the Q dissemination program was so crucial to begin 9 months ago, is because how are these white hats or this alliance going to conduct mass arrests if the public has no idea what's going on? Half of the public is gonna not even believe it's real and think that there's a bad military coup, a nefarious military coup going on. The other half of the population is just gonna be in chaos and think it's, people are gonna have no idea what's going on. So why the Q is so important in the last 9 months is that it's really, really catalyzed a group of individuals who see it and believe it to begin try to waking up their friends and family in their local communities. That's so important because then when these mass arrests begin taking place, or a lot of the bad actors that people hold so dearly to start getting arrested, then they know that, oh my gosh, we've been lied to. It's not, oh my gosh, Trump is the devil reincarnate and he's trying to, install fascism. It's not that way at all. So that's why the mass arrests haven't happened yet, is because we need the population awake, and it's also a massive, massive operation to arrest all of these networks. It's like the depth and the scope of this, I think, goes over some people's heads sometimes, and they don't imagine the depth of this corruption and how deep the tentacles of the deep state have infiltrated. But is it going to happen soon? I think yes. We have the midterms coming up, which is a big hurdle right there. That's very important for, I don't want to say us to win, but the deep state not to win, are those midterms. And then once those take place, though, once we see the outcome of those midterms, we'll be in a much better position with our judicial and political systems to really start cleaning everything up, not just draining the swamp, but have it be drained and then, picking out all the all the pieces within it. So yeah, this is a massive, massive operation in play because we're really redesigning all of the systems, all of our control systems. We're redesigning. We have to redesign the media. We have to redesign the financial systems. We have to redesign our education systems, and that's literally every single person in this, not just country, but on this planet involved in that. So it's not, hey, we can get all these mass arrests done in 9 months and that's it. This shadow civil war between white hats and black hats has been going on for decades. We're finally in the kind of ending stages of it, but it's not even going to be the end because then we have to rebuild everything back up. And we have to do so. We have to end this system and build back up new systems in a way that does not totally collapse our society. You see? So it's the scope of it isn't just arresting 10, 20, 30 people. It's arresting thousands of people at the very same time having a very easy continuity process during that phase.
I just want to make it clear to everyone, when you say redesigning, are you talking about everything that the deep state has put into place for all these years? We have to break it down and rebuild it?
Yeah, exactly. Truly. And that is every single system.
And what are we going to rebuild it into? Something that has nothing to do with the deep state? Like, is they're going to be pushed out of the corporate media? They're going to be pushed out of government? They're going to be pushed out of education and all that? Is that what you're talking about?
Literally, yeah. Because if they're not, this is a life or death scenario here. We have one example. Let's just talk about the pharmaceutical and food systems. Our food is heavily genetically engineered. We have millions of acres of GMO soy and corn being planted with how many gallons and tons of glyphosate sprayed on them. Not only that, we have geoengineering programs in play. I mean, it's destroying our biosphere. It's literally destroying our environment. And these are all deep state created. So if we get the deep state out, that's first step there. Second step, well, what are we going to do? We literally can't continue with these agricultural practices that we do, these geoengineering practices. This pharmaceutical system is obviously not for the people, it's for profits. And that's just a couple of examples of systems that we're going to have to redo and change. And then there's talking about, well, what about bringing out the technologies located in these black projects that have been hidden from us for decades and suppressed? Well, without a deep state, then these technologies can actually start coming out to the public. Well, what do these technologies entail? They entail easy energy creation, unlimited energy creation without the need of fossil fuels. They involve anti-gravity, gravity-controlled propulsion systems, get you A to B without fossil fuels very fast. This technology alone would revolutionize our society very fast, and it is going to. So all of our control systems, our whole paradigm is going to be revolutionized. We're going to have to redesign it if we want to live on this planet safely and healthfully. And it's going to be a very intensive process, but it's going to be very fun, and it can't happen until the deep state, yes, is eradicated.
Now, we know the deep state is not going to go down that easily. They're not just going to say, hey, I give up, thanks, it's been fun, and they're just going to exit. I mean, they're going to fight back any way they possibly can. And are you a little worried that they're going to do something, very intense or something that's huge, almost like on the scales of 9/11? If they feel like this is their last attempt?
I don't stay worried. I stay observant. And the deep state has absolutely been fighting to the teeth for a while now. There's been many kinds of mysterious deaths and false flags and events that occur that just leave you scratching your head. You gotta question many of these. But now on a grand scale, say on the size of a nuclear warhead, an EMP, maybe releasing some kind of biowarfare agent into the public, I do not think something of that catastrophic scale is possible. But on a smaller level, these types of shootings, other mysterious events, and whatnot, yeah, they're still possible. So it's very important to stay observant and be very aware of your surroundings when you're at public events.
Now, I just wanted to go back to the FISA memo and the IG report. And I think Paul Sperry was out there saying that it looks like the president might declassify the FISA memo. And Q has been saying, and this is what I'm getting out of what Q is saying, that the corporate media and the intelligence agencies, they already know what the IG report says and what all this says, all the information. I mean, because they're seeing the unredacted reports. They understand what it says. They have access to it. Do you think when this time comes, and many people think it's going to be in August, this month, what will the mainstream media do? What will the deep state do? I mean, is the president just going to, push it out there and say, I'm declassifying it? I mean, how do you think this will be approached?
So this is going to be purely speculation, but the way I'm seeing all of the programs intertwine with now that mainstream media is totally trying to put the kibosh on Q, it leaves us in a very interesting point, kind of fork in the road, right? So what now can happen before the FISA memo is declassified and really shows us how bad things are is that the president has a unique opportunity to completely destroy the mainstream media. They have been running Q hit pieces for a week now, every single outlet. So if the president is asked that question, what is Q? Who is Q? And he does confirm it in some way. I'm sure he's been practicing the very specific lines that he'll answer for months now. When it is confirmed, that will destroy the media. That will lose them all credibility. Then right after that, what a perfect time to release this FISA report, because then nobody would be going to the mainstream media, and they would then be looking to the alternative journalists that have been talking about Q. Oh my God, this person has been, aware and awakened to what's going on for all these months. I'm going to look to them for their opinion on this because I believe them. And then once the FISA report starts rolling out, we have essentially a new mainstream. A new media that is exponentially gaining in legitimacy and authority and popularity, and they're going to be the ones to report much more truth on this FISA memo than any of the lies that the mainstream media would tell us. So that seems to me, if I were to empathize and put myself in the shoes of these white hat guys behind the scenes, that's a perfect way to bring out the FISA memo in a way that won't be discredited by the media, at the very same time completely discrediting the mainstream media itself. So yeah, that's how I see it playing out, actually.
So I mean, since you mentioned this and you brought it up in your theory here, I can see why we see certain YouTube channels being taken down. I mean, yours was taken down and then it was brought back up. And then we have Sean from SGT was brought down and then brought back up. And then we had InfoWars, which is a huge YouTube channel. And they weren't just taken down from YouTube. They were taken down from Apple. They were taken down from Facebook, taken down from Twitter. And then all of a sudden we're getting reports that there are other individuals, I think from antiwar.com, that individual's Twitter account was taken down. Do you think they're doing this and taking down all of these individuals and probably more to come to get prepared for the release of all this information?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. They took my channel down in February, give it back a month later, took it down again, give it back a month later. When they took my channel down the first time, it was a wave of probably 30 to 40 channels that got taken down. You mentioned SGT Report, who was recently, like you mentioned, taken down. Luckily, he was put back pretty quickly. So, totally. I mean, this censorship's been going on all year. They've been it's been looking like they've been testing the waters and how to do it, and finally we're getting to a point where, I mean, it's the beginning of the end, if not nearly the end of the end in certain phases of this. And the deep state, they're so desperate You can read the desperation in all of the articles that they put out. All they're trying to do is ridicule because that they don't have any leg of truth to stand on. And now they're resorting to censorship. So they had to come down on InfoWars on almost all of their platforms. And not only that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Well, you mentioned as well other people's platforms getting silenced. So Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts I've even seen that weren't InfoWars, other people, voices they were trying to silence. And yeah, I would not be surprised if that were soon to come our way.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when the false flag, I'll say false flag, or the shooting in Parkland, prior to that, they gave a lot of people strikes before that even happened. And it seemed to me, this is just the way I saw it and my opinion here, where they gave, my channel received a strike. I have two channels, so both got a strike. And then SGT, I know, got a strike. I don't know if you got a strike, but.
Not beforehand. All the three I got were within probably about a 48-hour span after the event.
And many people got it beforehand, and then it looked like it enabled them to strike again after it happened because they knew that, all the alternative media, they were going to report on this. And of course they used, whatever hate speech, they used whatever they had to use to give another strike. And it looks like they were trying to build up to try to get rid of people's channels that way. And it looks like that's what they were trying to do at that point in time.
Exactly. And they give the most vague reasons when they do these things as well. If you do get a strike, usually they'll say, something about we look down on channels that promote violent content or hate speech or whatnot. But usually in those emails, they'll never actually say it was your channel that was promoting the hate speech. And they'll never actually tell you the exact lines that they gave it a strike for. They just say, we look down on channels that talk about violent content, so here's a strike for you. Well, why am I getting a strike? They never they never describe why. And not only that, but the second time I got my YouTube channel taken down, I ended up finding out a couple weeks later that they took it down because I was promoting a CBD oil on it. Nothing having to do with violent content or hate speech. It was because of CBD oil. That was their excuse. They cut my channel. How many YouTube channels are already promoting CBD oil? I've even seen YouTube commercials themselves before the videos even play promoting CBD oils, but yet they deleted my channel because I was promoting a CBD oil. You see, so it makes no sense. They make no sense.
No, it really doesn't make any sense. And I think they just try to use whatever they possibly can to take it down. And then when you call them on it, or you have other individuals write in or tweet or do whatever, they look at it and they say, okay, well, there's no reason here for this to stay down, and they bring it back up. And I think that's been happening quite a bit, where people's channels have gone down for a couple of days and they come back up because they can't figure out a way to keep them down, because you really didn't go against their terms of service. And, they have nothing to stand on, and they're hoping that you just stay quiet and they just can keep it down. But I think a lot of people complain and a lot of people write in, a lot of people tweet, and that's why they really can't.
The power in numbers shows you the power in numbers. Every single voice, every single like and comment on these videos, every single share, you don't have to be a person with 100,000 followers on Twitter or some YouTuber with a bunch of views. Every single person, their actions and their efforts matter, no matter at what level. So if somebody gets deleted or cut or censored, writing into the corporation, it helps. It makes a big difference to have the back of people you care about in this movement.
And I believe that's also the message of Q, where Q continually says, we the people, we have the strength. If we band together, we can pretty much do anything, get, anything out there. And I think that's the message that Q continually harps on with every single post that Q drops.
Pretty much. There's a lot of continual reminding in the posts that the Q group is putting out now, because they're just continuously reminding people, hey, it's you guys. It's we the people. This program, this Q program that was put in place 9 months ago, it was simply there to act as a catalyzer, to act as a dot connector for people, to get people out of their kind of apathetic, confused days and get them activated and start really working together towards a common goal. And in those Q posts as well, it continuously says, think for yourself, trust yourself. The choice to know will be yours and yours alone. And that's true. A lot of these detractors, like I mentioned earlier, they don't even read the posts. They don't even go on 8chan. They have no idea how the community operates, what's been going on for the last 9 months. But then they claim to have some authoritative opinion that we should listen to. Claim to have all the knowledge. No. You can't be that way, you see. The amazing thing about this Q operation, it's also exposing the egos out there. But truly, it's up to us, and it's up to us to really do the digging, make the effort to do the research to find out for ourselves, and then shout it from the rooftops, warn our friends and family, get people understanding consciously what's going on this planet, because very near, times are very close that we're going to see some serious crap hit the fan.